Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 10-minute Bible lesson. We appreciate you joining us today. Well, we're not on the parables anymore. We did, I believe, 21 parables, and that was all in the New Testament. Those were Jesus's parables. But now we're in the Old Testament. In fact, we're in the first book. Do you know what the first book is? I think you do. It's the book of Genesis. In fact, we're in the first book, the first chapter, and the first two verses. Let's go ahead and read those two verses and see what they say. Genesis chapter 1, verses 1 and 2. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. So one of the great questions that man has had for thousands of years is simply this question: where did it all come from? And the answer's been here with us all along. It's been right here in the Bible, and on page 1 and verse 1, right here. I just say this, and the question's still being asked today. We've got the answer, but people are not satisfied with the answer. In fact, they're still asking the question today. And just would say this, that all you have to do is read the first 10 words of the Bible, and it'll answer that question. Now, there's more to this, a little bit more to this than what meets the eyes than just saying that God created the heavens and the earth. So, and this is going to seem obvious to you. So if God created the heavens and the earth, it makes sense that God was there. So God existed before he created the heavens and the earth, before the beginning of it. He's the one responsible for everything. He's responsible for the heavens that we see and the earth that we walk in. In fact, he tells us he was there. In fact, this passage tells us that he had to be there before those things came into existence. So it tells us there's a God and he was there. In fact, it goes on and says, I believe, and it tells us this, that he is the cause behind the effect. So the effect is everything that we see, but what's the cause of it? Listen, he's the cause of it. He's the cause behind the effect. Every effect has a cause. So I just have to say this, that something doesn't come from nothing. That's unreasonable to assume that. So when God created the universe at the same time, since the universe is made up of space and time and matter, then he created those as well. So they also came into existence. So the universe contains all of these things, and that means that God created them, and it also means this, that he exists outside of those things. Now just ponder that just a little bit, if you would, and think about it. So he exists, before there was time. The world that we live in is made up of matter, it's made up of time, and it's made up of space, but they haven't always been there. In fact, scientists have changed their mind about the universe. And you may not know this, but I'm pretty sure they used to teach that the universe was eternal. Well, they're not teaching that anymore because they know that the universe is not eternal. It had a beginning. In fact, they know this because it's expanding, and how they tell that it's expanding is the wavelengths of light are shifting toward the red as they go out. In fact, Edwin Hubble, maybe you've heard of the Hubble telescopes, named after a guy named Edwin Hubble. In 1929, he discovered that the universe was expanding and that the galaxies were moving away from us. So that means that the universe had a beginning. That means to say it had a singular point. That is to say, a time at the very beginning when a point that it just expanded. Now they call it the Big Bang, which is something else that's really not true. It wasn't really a Big Bang. It was created by God himself. He spoke everything into existence. It's not a big bang or a big explosion. Now use your reasoning ability and See if you can think of a time when something exploded, and when it exploded out, it went into order and harmony. I've never known that to happen. Normally, when something explodes, it just goes everywhere and into chaos. And so I think that they're still teaching the Big Bang Theory, but you know what? It's not a Big Bang Theory because God created it. In fact, the earth and the heavens are a witness to God's existence and to His glory. All of these things tell us that God exists, and there's several passages in the Scripture you can look at. And you say, well, how come it is that men believe different things? Well, you may not want to accept this reason, but the reason is that man is a sinful creature, and he's a fallen creature, and it affects the way that we live, and it even affects the way that we think and the way that we reason. So man, if you might say that man's heart is blinded. Man's heart and his mind is blinded to certain truths, and they can't see it. They just can't see it. Well, let's look and see what Paul said about this in Romans chapter 1, verses 19 and 20. This is a great verse. Romans 1, 19 and 20. He says, because what may be known of God is manifest in them, for God has shown it to them. Now, how did God show it to man? And then he tells us, for since the creation of the world, His invisible attributes are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made. Did you get that? Let me just go over that again. Since the creation of the world, His invisible attributes are clearly seen. That is to say, God's power and His might and His wisdom, all of the wonderful attributes of God are clearly seen. Now, how do we see those? Being understood by the things that are made. So it says, even His eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. You know, man is not, he's without excuse. Because every person in every part of the planet can see the stars and see the wonders of the heavens and the glory of the earth. They can see all of these things. And it's like this. Where did they come from? So they came from an explosion? I don't think so. It's like a beautiful painting that you see, and the person goes up to it and says, wow, that's a beautiful painting. I guess it just exploded and became real. No, there had to be a painter behind it. Or someone might look at some great skyscraper. What would they say? That's really something. It just kind of happened and it appeared one day. Not at all. There was something, there was a cause behind the effect. And so someone made that skyscraper, and it's the same thing with the earth and the stars. Listen, they didn't come from nothing. Somebody put them there. And what does it do? It tells us about the greatness and the power and the wonder of the one who made it. Isn't that a great thing? Well, listen, that's all we have for today, just a few verses. And we're going to look at some more passages in Genesis as we go on, but we appreciate you joining us today and hope you'll tune in again to the 10-Minute Bible Lesson.